Hey guys, what's up? Cardfight here, and today I'm here with a meta video. This is a meta discussion, and I'll be talking about why some decks are topping and why, you know, my thoughts on the current meta right now. Oops. So basically, at least in the Hong Kong, this is from what I've been seeing in the Hong Kong meta. This is what tier 1, tier 2, and then tier 3. These are the decks that are still being used, and decks that I see top, they top quite a bit. And so yeah, let's just get right into the decks. So for tier 1, there are decks like Omega Glendios, Novel Veg, and Shadow Revengers, and the main reason for their prominence, even after the Conroe ban for Novel Veg, is that these decks have a lot of search functions. So not really for Kagero, but they have other stuff to do that. Well, they kind of have a search function. Let's just talk about this deck first, actually. This deck, a lot of people thought it would be less played since Conroe was banned, but that was not the case because people still run the build with the Grade 3 Searcher, and it's still pretty consistent. They have, you can wipe board with it. You can wipe the board with it. You can, obviously this card is good because, yeah, you can wipe the board with it, and then you can make your opponent not be able to guard with Grade 0s, and the triggers are, useless on their turn. I mean, on your turn, not on their turn. That will be. And basically, he's just all around really good. Yeah, and especially combo with Dauntless Drive Dragon, swinging twice is just quite scary. And yeah, so basically that's that. Next, Omega Glendios. It's also a very good deck. Not a lot of people actually played this in tournaments because they're scared that it's going to be inconsistent. I can see why they would think that, and this is from especially since yesterday. Yesterday was WGP. I scrubbed out quite a bit. I was using Minerva, so I'll explain that a bit later. But anyway, yesterday for WGP, a lot of people were not using Omega Glendios. There's only like 3 or 4 people that were using Glendios. And that's mainly because if you get grade stuck, you're pretty much screwed. I mean, sure, the grade 0 helps you search out, your grades, but it's still a risk that you're willing to take since you're running so many grade 3s. And yeah, but it's good because you can Omega lock people, and basically his skill basically is not even limit break when you call and lock. So when you call a reverse unit and lock something, before you even limit break, it's quite good. And being able to permanently lock, if you call and then discard, and then call again next turn and discard, they're pretty much, their 2 front row attackers are pretty much locked throughout the whole game if you're playing Omega Glendios properly. And since you can pick up your reverse units back and then unflip your damage, this deck is just really, really consistent in terms of being able to lock people and keeping constant pressure on your opponent, since they'll only be able to attack with their Vanguard. And yeah, and even for the restanding Vanguards, being able to divert your guard so that it's not attacking the Vanguard and not letting them stand up again is just really good. So that's why Omega Glendios is topping everywhere. I believe this is the deck that won yesterday in WGP. I'm pretty sure it's what won. I played against the guy who won in the qualifiers, and he lost to me because he was grade stuck, so that's quite unfortunate for him. But congratulations to him for winning WGP this year. Yeah. Revengers, it's quite obvious why Revengers are up here. It's not really being played that much in Japan anymore, surprisingly, but it's the main deck that was played in Hong Kong. I believe at least like half the players there yesterday were playing Revengers, and there were only like 24 players there. So because you have to be invited to join. So yeah, most of the people played Revengers for obvious reasons. The deck has withstanding Vanguard, it has searchability, it has constant pressure. Well, not constant pressure, but you have the pressure with the dog, and you can force your opponent to 5 damage. So yeah. So that's there's not really much else to say. I probably will show you my Raging Form build, or not my Raging Form, my Drag Ruler Raging Form build soon. I'm still getting used to seeing which grade ratio which lineup I want to run for grade 3s. Yeah, I tried a lot of lineups, but there's a few that I really like, but I'm still deciding which one I like the most. So after that, Raging Form, obviously why the deck is good. Omega Glendios, a lot of people thought that this deck will be super inconsistent when it first came out, but obviously that's not the case, and it's topping. So it's topping and winning, so yeah. Alright, next. Rebirth. It's a very good deck, but it gets overshadowed by Omega Glendios. So Rebirth, there's only like two or so players that are using this. Yeah, mainly it was Shadow Paladin, and then I think it was Nova Vague, and then the rest was the deck. The rest of the people ran some pretty weird decks. So yeah, no, Rebirth is very good because you can stand up twice, and then if you break ride, you can stand up 3 times. So you get 6 drive checks, which is pretty good. Even against Omega Glendios, actually, if you don't activate his limit break, you'll be fine. The deck still has a lot of power. You can retire stuff, and then you can search for grade 3s. So basically, if you don't, break right into Rebirth, you can just break right into himself, and then you'll still get 4 drive checks. So that's still pretty nice. Still putting extra guard in your hand, which is not very good against Nova Vague. So that's probably why this deck didn't really do too well. Yeah, and then Liberators. It's pretty good for a lot of reasons, but it's still in tier 2 because if you play against a good Omega Glendios player, they won't let you limit break. So they'll just Omega lock you to death. And a lot of people might be surprised saying, oh, how is that going to happen? If you're a bad Monarch Sanctuary player and you call rear guards, it's just targets for Omega Glendios to attack. Since if they can keep you at 3 damage or below, they pretty much got the game. Unless you can keep them at 4 damage and not let them Omega lock. But a lot of Omega Glendios players will actually take the risk of no guarding at 4 damage and hope you don't get crit. And then once that happens, you're pretty much screwed because he's just going to Omega lock you, and yeah, that's game from there. And then you can't unlock because you can't limit break. Next, Duos. Duos is also pretty, is a deck that a lot of people used. A lot of people use it in the team tournament. Not a lot of people use it in the singles because people are still scared about how consistent this deck is going to be. This deck is actually pretty decent against Omega Glendios because you can bounce back all your units if you break ride, and after that, you can just keep an empty field for that turn, and then next turn you can just slap down all your units again, and then proceed to beat down your opponent. But the problem is, the main problem is that you might not always get a pair. That is the main problem with this deck, getting doubles. It's not hard to get doubles, but when you don't get doubles, you just don't get doubles. So people don't really want to risk that in a grand sale tournament like WGP. So a lot of people didn't run this. Yeah. And then onto the decks that were not a lot of people played at all. only like 1 or 2 people played of each. I was the only person playing Minerva, and that's probably why I did so poorly. Well, while Minerva is pretty good, the rest of the deck doesn't really help too much since building Soul is good and all, but once the starter gets locked or destroyed, the deck is pretty much not going to do too well. The decks that I play against, like Revengers and Gold Paladin, they were fine because they couldn't retire my starting Vanguard. But once I got matched up against Kagero and Omega Glandios, I pretty much got screwed because once they locked my rear guard, my booster, I couldn't get any more soul. So after I reset twice and they still didn't die, it was quite sad because I'll play against Rebirth, not Royal Veg. He retired my starting Vanguard, and I couldn't get any extra soul in there. So the only soul I could work with is, and I could even break right also. So the only soul I worked with was the soul I started with, and the Grappa and the Great One. I soul blast them, and actually, how did I get off? No, I gotta use her her thing once. The stars effect once. So I did have 3 soul, and after that I got 4 soul, so I could reset twice. But then that's about it. So nobody really used Minerva because her support is kind of weak, and yeah, that's pretty much it. And if you don't get the break right off, her resetting cost is quite large. So yeah. So all in all, I should have probably went in there with either Revengers or Duo. These are the 3 decks I was debating on which I should go with. But I felt like going with Minerva because I felt like being a hipster. But obviously that did not work out for me. And also, yeah, you know, I scrubbed that pretty hard. So let's see. Lukier is pretty good, but the main problem is Omega Glandios. Yeah, so I think there's 2 people who ran Pale Moon in the tournament, and pretty much one person ran reverse, one person did not run reverse. The person who did not run reverse dropped out of the tournament really fast. The person who did run reverse, I think, made it into top 8. So yeah, it's pretty much he ran a pretty unique build. I didn't actually see how his build was, but it was quite nice. It was quite refreshing to see Pale Moon player up there. Yeah, so this deck is obviously good because you can, after you get your whole field gets retired by Novel Veg's Persona Blast, you can just crap out a bunch of units and, you know, start beating out your opponent again. Aquaforce, there's not much else to say about Aquaforce. His Maelstrom versus Limit Break is very good, but against 13k Vanguards, your rear guards are hitting for very, very crappy numbers, so that's probably why I did not do very well. Once this deck cross rides, and once this deck cross rides, and once you ride into your Rage 4, your rear guards are hitting for pretty crappy numbers, so that's why this card didn't make it to the top. On the other note, Transcore Dragon, not Transcore, Glory Maelstrom is a pretty strong card, especially against Omega Glandios decks. Since they can't guard with grade 1s, they can't use the Redirector, and they can't use Perfect Guard, so they're pretty much forced to guard with grade 0s. Which, you know, they might have a lot in their hand, but it's fine. You can just grind their hand down with your rear guards first, and then if they still have any hand left, you can still proceed to play your deck, since this Maelstrom Reverse decks don't usually only revolve around Maelstrom Reverse. So yeah, people will almost always take in at least one Glory Maelstrom. So yeah, because for Aquaforce decks, once your rear guards get locked, Omega locked, it's pretty hard to use any of these two guys' effect. So you should always use this because you don't require attack order for you to use this effect. So you can still counterblast one, force them to use grade zeros to guard, and hope that they don't have a lot of grade zeros. So that's pretty much it for this meta analysis video. That's pretty much it. That's pretty much all I want to say. Yeah, this meta is actually pretty diverse right now. I really like it. Although it's heavily dominated by Revengers, I'm pretty glad that Revengers didn't actually win. Instead, decks that not a lot of people used won. So it's pretty nice to see. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this video, guys. This is Card Otaku, and I'll see you guys very soon. Bye.